The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Born to be alive, we most certainly are. You're listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now, and wherever you're listening in the world and whatever time it is, if you'd like to join the live chat, go across to w4cy.com and click on the right-hand side and you can ask your questions. Today is rather exciting because I get to catch up with someone that I haven't spoken to for quite some time, and Angeline Teo is the president of PEP Worldwide, and it's all about changing our work life forever. So I'm really interested to hear more about this. So welcome to the program, Angeline.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me here.
And I believe it's nice and sunny in Singapore too.
It is, at the moment it is.
Well, the US listeners, it'll be getting close to their bedtime, so I won't pep them up too much before they want to settle down and go to sleep. But the last I spoke with you was actually I was part of the global showcase from the Australian government in Singapore for success specialists, and I was 4 months pregnant, so I have a really distinct memory, because I've only been pregnant once, of that occasion. Well, everyone in Singapore congratulated me too, because I mispronounced success specialist and called myself a sex specialist, and they thought she obviously does it really well, because here she is before us, quite very pregnant. So what have you been doing? I know about PEP Worldwide, but our listeners certainly won't know about PEP Worldwide. So let's one of the listeners has commented, that is so funny. Well, at the time I was tripping over my tongue, but it was an accomplishment apparently.
Yes. Yeah, actually, PEP Worldwide, we are a global company. It stands for Personal Efficiency Program. That's where we pick everyone's performance, helping busy executives to learn how to achieve work-life balance, at the same time to be in control, over their lives. Like, for example, if you're growing up and you have, a new kid on the block as well, trying to juggle between your career and learning how to, take on the increasing workload because of the new technologies that's really coming on board. And I guess
exactly.
So, yeah.
I'm just going to jump in there because listeners, just to clarify, because they've said, what is the company? And it is PEP, which is a personal efficiency program. And Angeline and I are on super speed. So we talk really fast and you guys just all listen really slow.
Tell me if I need to slow down, please.
So we will do our best to slow our speaking, and you can do your best to fast forward your listening. And they've asked, is it easy to gain control of life? Well, as we're talking about a personal efficiency program, this is really, really important and part of what I love about personal empowerment, because it puts everyone in the driver's seat of their life instead of at the mercy of circumstances. So anything I can do to support and empower and encourage others to take up the reins of their own life, I'm fully on board with. So you do this in a workplace capacity, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We usually conduct this at the workplace itself. It makes it more practical, yeah.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that you would do within the workplace?
So what we do is actually across a duration of about 3 months, because what we are focusing on is transforming at the workplace, people's lives, changing people's mind, changing their ways of working, helping them to learn how to be in control, understanding some of their work habits that might sabotage their efficiency levels. And then we come back again by giving them, important tools so that they can apply it to their work, such as like prioritization tools, planning tools, decision-making tools, thinking tools. All these are really important and crucial at the workplace.
Exactly. Well, for me, I originally, when I first heard about change my work life forever, I was like, having been in the police force for a long period of time, I changed my work life forever by simply resigning. So that was my strategy. If it really isn't working, it was time for me to go. So does the PEP program also address those that have reached that end of the point line and are in a chronic state of mind?
Yeah, actually, when we talk about work life, it's not necessarily it's got to be at the office environment. A lot of people, even though they're a homemaker, it's still working, right? I mean, if you're a homemaker,
Exactly.
You still have to look at, balancing, doing those work at home, attending to your children, and at the same time for yourself, relaxing. So, the principles are still the same, regardless of whether you're going to be at the office environment, at the home environment, or even, out in the field. So it's really very applicable regardless, yeah.
Exactly. And I've had business owners say to me, well, what if I train them and they leave because I've conducted some programs where the people afterwards that attended have resigned and started up their own businesses. They were so inspired, and they've sent me the emails afterwards saying, thanks, Rosie, thanks to you, we've started our own business going great. And I thought, well, that's good. They've then used me in their business. But the other businesses said, well, what's the point of you coming in when my people go? But what's the point of if you don't train people and they actually stay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good answer. But I think we all need to understand that, it's a cycle. We can't keep everybody forever. We can't keep them forever. And in fact, it would be to us a compliment. Once they leave the company, if you treat them well, they become your ambassador. So if you look at it in a positive light, they become your ambassador, right? When they're out there,
Exactly.
They'll be saying, hey, I've worked for Angeline and it's really wonderful. I've actually learned A, B, C, and D when I was there. And now that I can become an entrepreneur, it's all thanks to Angeline, who has actually groomed me up, And I'm quite happy to do that.
And it's a bit like personal relationships too. Like most of us, there will be those that complain about their exes, but hey, they're an ambassador for the relationship you've just had.
Exactly. I mean, I see it as an ambassador because even myself, a number of them, they came, they worked with me for 5 years, 10 years. And then they decide to say, I would like to try out something. I say, yeah, you've got my blessings, yeah. And they have their own passion. They should be following their dreams too. And I still continue to coach them. I'm still in touch with them. We're still a big family. It gets bigger and bigger. And they become my ambassador. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, yeah.
So now for me, like I love that personal efficiency program. I actually used a PEP program years back, but my PEP stood for personal engagement program because I was about having people engaged and be that engaged in their own life, that they're actively engaged or engaged in their workplace, engaged in whatever relationship, be it as a parent with their children, because in today's environment, I see so much disengagement. And what I mean by disengagement is people that are physically present, but mentally and emotionally, they're off elsewhere, especially with technology.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like in the meeting room itself, I mean, it would be so disrespectful when somebody is speaking and the other one would be their heads down, looking at their iPhones and so on, or, going on the computer when you are trying to deliver a message. So these are part and parcel of, what the PEP program is all about, whether it's efficiency, effectiveness, or engagement. I think this is what is lacking at the moment, in most working environment.
Well, the successful environments we're seeing is where they actually cultivate that engagement. For example, if we look at technology and just look at Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of that social media, it's all about engagement, be it community engagement, client engagement, obtaining customer. It's getting their attraction to what you've got offering, engaging them, and then once you've engaged them, they're actually interested in knowing more.
Exactly. And that's really important. The engagement is so important without losing the balance at the same time.
So for people that are in a work situation that aren't feeling engaged and aren't feeling efficient and effective, what would be 3 key strategies that you would introduce right at the outset so that they can enjoy or enhance that part of their life?
I think the first strategy is probably looking at the opportunities to help them create the awareness. Most of us, we are not aware that we are disengaging in a social environment sometimes, right? Because there's so much to ourselves that we've forgotten that there are people around us that needed our attention as well. Yes.
You only have to watch 2 people out to dinner and they've got their mobile phones and they're each flicking through the mobile instead of talking to each other across the table. And the kids today with their tablets and iPads and, we got whatever
the dining
it is.
Table, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I haven't been to Singapore for a while now, but Singapore was a very fast and happening place and way ahead of, a lot of the Western worlds at the time. So I can only imagine now that technology would be even more advanced than it had been previously.
I think the technology is probably very advanced all over the world. It is just that the people, they are using the technology. They are probably moving faster how to use those technology. And I think because of that, it's more so that every one of them must learn how to effectively and efficiently manage and stay in control, even though there are technologies around, and not allowing the technology to control our lives. I think that's really crucial,
Of course. So if you've just tuned in, you're listening to W4CY Radio. It's Rosie Pekar on Until Now, and I'm talking to Angeline V Teo from PEP Worldwide about changing your work life forever. And as one listener has asked, is it easy to gain control of life? So what steps would you give to that person that wants to take control of their life?
Okay. Well, I think it is actually possible to take control over certain parts of our life. And definitely what we need to do is to do it a step at a time. And first, understanding what is actually made up of our lives. If we look at the circle of life, the wheel of life itself, let's say, we have to try to first prioritize and look at what's most important to us in our life.
So when you talk about prioritize, some people, they'll do a to-do list of the 20 or 200 things that they need to get done that day. Now, when I hear prioritize, I don't think of my to-do list. I think of my personal values of what's most important for me at the end, the currency of my life. How am I spending it? Am I spending it being bitter and complaining and angry and annoyed? Or am I spending it appreciating and becoming more aware of the positive attributes I have and others have that amass to a better moment?
Yeah,
well, so that's what I talk about.
Is that right, yours, Rosie? Yeah, you're quite right. But what I would actually say is that how it would really impact, what kind of impact you expect to get out of it. So when you are prioritizing, you're looking at how does it impact on your life. So if you decide to choose not to do certain things, by not doing, how will that impact on the outcome? Or if you choose to prioritize on doing a particular thing, and what kind of impact it's going to come up from there.
Exactly. So the person that wants to spend 80 plus hours in their work environment and then only 5+ hours in their home environment, do they still expect their partner to be there?
Exactly. So the impact
after another year or two.
Absolutely. So you might get a good impact in terms of thinking that you are productive, but rightfully you might not be, because your body, your system may not be able to substantiate the 18 hours of work life, the work itself, at the office. And then
exactly. And
so
men are guilty of this because of the fact that men will use the statement, and we all excuse certain behaviors. We create excuses for them in order to keep them within our lives. And men will say, yes, but I'm doing this for my family.
Yeah, I get that as well. Some of these executives that I coach, because I coach a lot of senior executives, including presidents of companies and chairmen and CEOs of companies. Now, some of them, they actually tell me, Angie, I really have no time, and I'm working so hard for my family. I said, then how many do you have? I have 3 children, and they were like 5 years old, 6 years old, and 10 years old, and they needed a lot of things. So that's why I'm working so hard. I said, how many hours do you work in a day? I said, and then they said, I spend about 15 hours in a day working, and I'm slogging so hard for them. So I said, how much time do you spend with them? They said, well, hardly, most of the time when I'm back, they were asleep. When I leave the office, they are asleep. And then I said, right, Mr. John, you really, I think you just contradicted yourself, right? Because you said you love your family very much and you're working for them, and yet at the same time, you're not watching them grow. And that really kind of was a wake-up call for him. And he said, you've got a point there, Angie. I'm working hard for my kids, but at the same time, over the past 3 years, I haven't got a chance to really kiss them or had a game with them or spend time with them.
Exactly. And they're like, as you mentioned, a lot of senior executives, the first complaint is they're not enough time, but I tell them they have exactly the same amount of time as everyone else. The difference is for me, I use that term quality. So it's like any investment, a return on investment. What are you putting in that you get a return on? Is that something that you really value? And as one listener has just asked here, how do we make time? Well, for me, it would be anything you appreciate grows. So you appreciate that time that you have with family. So it doesn't mean necessarily that you make more time with them, but you are actively engaged with them when you're present and there with them. That small amount of time all of a sudden becomes monumental.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important that we understand, prioritization involves prioritizing not just work itself, but prioritizing the time that you needed to spend with your family. That also involves prioritizing it and putting it into a plan. Instead of saying about it, it's really putting it into a plan, blocking off the calendar and making time to be with the loved ones, making time to do the important things. Because time is only 24 hours. There's nothing more than that. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the old saying, there are those that don't plan to fail, but they fail to make a plan of exactly what it is that you really do want out of life. And most of us that have been in careers where we plot and progress and choose a direction for our careers, get training and awareness in this. The average person in their school environment, having gone through primary school and then high school, they don't get access to this material and an awareness of how life really is at their own control. They really are the directors.
Exactly. It is actually within their control. Every one of us, we have 24 hours. It is within our control how we would like to spend the 24 hours. And I think, if it means a lot to you, it is really putting aside and making that plan and making it work and sticking to it. The thing is, I was engaged by an organization, to teach them how to plan. And the first thing I actually went on to them is that I'm sure a number of us, we have lots of beautiful plans. But research has still shown that 90% of the plans never got executed at all. So, moving it forward, it's not just planning or prioritizing. It is really putting it into action and executing it.
Exactly. A decision is not an action. And people tend to think, because I made a decision, I decided to do that. It's like we all decide at the start of a new year, we're going to lose weight.
Yeah, we never
Exactly. We all decide no more sugar, no more all this bad stuff until next
And then we
week.
get tempted when we saw the ice cream calling us. Yeah.
Exactly. So now I deal a lot with those that, have become, as I mentioned earlier, disengaged. So it could be, police or prison security environment, and they have a high level of dissatisfaction within the workplace, and as such also face a high level of violence and high incidence of risks that then enables chronic conditions to set up. My number one thing I say to them is that lack of value becomes systemic within an organisation, because that's the common denominator I've found of dissatisfaction equals low value. As soon as you have a recognition of a high value, all of a sudden you have a higher level of satisfaction, though nothing in the workplace has changed. They still face high risks, high violence, everything else, but they are acknowledged in their workplace. Is that something that you address?
Well, I think it's really important to look at the whole approach itself, so it's not a matter of just the behavior itself, but a combination of all, their attitude and the ways they're delivering and the ways that they're really working with their people and the colleagues around at the workplace too.
Okay. So, for example, if you have acknowledged and owned and accepted, I go through a bit of a 3-step process that, know what your problem is, know what the difficulty is, know what the challenge is. If you can't fight it if you can't see it. However, I don't like to stay in that state, because what we pay attention to accentuates, in other words, becomes more of. So people get step A and then they continue to be fault finders and fact finders and problem seekers, and then that perpetuates that problem. That doesn't matter whether it's in a business place or a personal relationship. The things we're talking about today, they affect us personally. That's the first word in your PEP program, is that it's about us individually. We take ourselves everywhere.
Yes.
So, and one listener's just asked, so thinking about something makes it worse. I would say yes. What would you say?
Well, I think it's really important that individuals learn how to take personal responsibility for the things that's really happening at the workplace. So at the PEP program, we drive a personal accountability and personal responsibility, and also the importance of team communication. So that is really key when we bring people together to be engaged in project management, in the brainstorming process itself, so that individual will then go away and taking that personal accountability, to make sure things are being done, and then coming back together again as a team to look at how to make things, better and moving it forward. So there won't be any finger pointing, who is at fault when things goes wrong, right? I mean, that's the most, clearly, a lot of companies are really doing that when something goes wrong and people are looking for scapegoats to blame. But here we're saying when something goes wrong, instead of focusing on what's wrong, let's focus on how do we as a team work together and make it right.
Exactly. And that's quite a powerful point you made there, because the word personal responsibility in some environments is immediately thought of as, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I'm now going to be blamed. I'm at fault. I'm a problem. This is trouble. Whereas personal responsibility to me equals personal power. So the more you become responsible, you become more at power for things within your own life. And most of us want to be powerful. We may not want to be responsible, but we want to be powerful. Now, I'm just going to add, if you've just tuned in, you're listening to W4CY Radio. If you've got questions, I'm talking to Angeline Teo. She is the president of PEP Worldwide, about changing work life forever. So some of the questions, I'll just address them while we're up to them. Is it us dwelling on something that caused the trouble? That was when I was talking about that what we pay attention to is what dwells and grows. And people like to pay attention to problems, and personal problems. And yes, that certainly becomes a cyclical state of mind, and then a cyclical state of business, as you would see with lots of chronic conditions, because that's by the time that a business would be calling you in to say, help, you need to change.
I think it's really important these days, especially, for people to embrace change and have the mindset that things may not work the ways it were previously before, because things has actually moved on so fast, and speed is the essence. I mean, we are talking about these days, it's no longer how big you are, it is really how fast you are.
Yes, and company cultures for careers these days, it used to be, 25 years for your gold watch. Then I knew in the last decade it was a 3-year turnover. And I assume now, by the speed of changes, that you may not even have a yearly lifespan.
Yeah, I mean, the millennials these days, if you're very lucky, they will stay with you for a year or so. Yeah.
Right. So my guess was about on the mark then.
Yeah, exactly. I've been pretty fortunate. So I've got people with me that stayed with me for 9 years, 10 years, 4 years was, the least amount of time. But then again, I think it's really how they contributed to the company and how the company has also helped them to grow and progress. That's really important.
Exactly, because that was what I was talking about before, saying that, if we acknowledge what is, a problem or a difficulty and own it and accept it within the organisation, the next I use is a B, because I do a simple ABC, that way everyone can remember it, is once we're actually being, we're not busy doing, we're sitting present with it. So we can actually be creative, we can be supportive, we can be endorsing or empowering what comes next, which is change, the change agents and the change makers that is required to change it from a problem to something that we're more passionate about.
Absolutely. And also in PEP itself, we do have a tool that helps people to learn how to make that move and change. Because sometimes we look at things on a very surface level, we usually base on a particular problem and we said, okay, I've been there, I've done that, therefore this is probably not possible. We can't go ahead with it, we abandon it. But because of the new environment, there may be new possibilities. So that's where we use a tool to help individuals learn how to make decisions and say, are there possibilities to now relook at the same issues, and are there possibilities now to try and change the outcome from something negative to something positive? Or if it's working really well, people might say, I've actually been there, done that, therefore this is going to be the outcome, and they're quite complacent. So that's where we would like to challenge them and say, can we do anything better with a tool? Can we do better? Because I think with the new economy, we're talking about melting pots everywhere. People are coming from all over the world these days, okay? And that's where you have a lot of best practices, you have a lot of good people around. And how do we tap on now new resources? And looking at the old problem, we might be able to come up with amazing answer later on.
Exactly, because in the workplace, they're considering, so much, not only the people with diversity, but within the business culture, business excellence, business transformation, innovation excellence, productivity, operational excellence, continuous improvement, strategy, change management, customer experience, capability, process management, optimization. Good God.
Keep go on and on and on. But the thing, Rosie, we all know that every one of us, especially the senior executives, we are so exposed to all these big words, to all these bombastic words, we are so exposed to it. The question here is, are the leaders taking personal responsibility? Are they willing to bite the bullet? Are they really walking the talk? Are they willing to invest in their people or in themselves? Are they willing to ensure that people not just know that these must be done, that they know how to be done, how to go about to do it? So that's where we come in. It's not just the knowing, because you can really buy them a book, they can read and they say, yeah, I know I have to transform. Yeah, I know I have to plan. Oh, yeah, I know I've got to be systematic. But really the how to get it started, I think that's the most crucial. Yeah, that's the most crucial example that I, be giving to the audience.
Oh, without doubt. I think the most powerful point, the reason that I was just ranting off, within business itself, is that all of those words I could sum up in one word. It's represented by people.
Yes,
so it doesn't matter what tag you want to put it under, what folder, what heading, whatever sounds great, whatever floats your boat. The word is, it comes back to people.
Yes, well said.
So being in business is being about people.
Yeah,
it's
how
growing
you people, right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I'm going to answer one of the listeners' questions here, who asked who can be in this program and why would they be in it. I would say people can be in this program.
Anyone. Well, anyone, white-collar workers, yes.
Exactly. And why would they be in it? Because they want to be more passionate and more engaged, and that translates to all those processes that we put on there before. Now, another listener has asked, and for those that are listening, if you want to ask a question and join the live chat, just go across to w4cy.com and click on the right-hand side and you can ask your questions there. So this question is, it is not easy to stay on point. How do we stay focused?
Oh, that's a really important point. Especially these days, we get distracted so easily. We are interrupted all the time. In an open office environment, for example, you get colleagues coming, leaning over your desk and asking for information, asking for assistance. You get interrupted, and straight away you're not focused anymore. Or when you're doing some work and suddenly something just flashes out and go into your mind internally and started talking to you, and then there you go. You moved away from something else. So you get,
or even that quick flick on social media, and you discover 2 hours later.
Yeah, exactly. You get a Facebook ping, coming up and so on. So you get distracted with a lot of things. I think one of the key things is to move away from all the possible distraction. And that is try and look for a place that you have to focus, especially for thought leaders or thinkers. You need to focus on doing a plan, and you have limited time to try and get it done. You might want to move away from your office environment, get into an office, get into a meeting room, probably locked up the door, hang out, a sign and say, do not disturb or come back later. And that's where you have your own time. Or you might want to block off the time in your calendar and let people know that, hey, between 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I've got a meeting with myself. And the meeting with myself means no one is going to be interrupting me, because no one is going to be stealing away the time. Because we only have 24 hours in a day. If you allow other people to steal the time away from you, that means you will have lesser by that amount of time, that 2 hours of time, right? So you might as well take back control of the time for yourself. And then that's where you can really focus on it. You can move away from all the distractions and all the, interruptions. Yeah.
Yes, very important, minimising those distractions and making that schedule for it. I know with my former partner, he was nicknamed Mr. Have a Chat. So, and as a business boss, and people would ring, and he would be working till all hours of the night, though we work from home. Yeah. And I said, what you need to do is actually schedule. This is your time that you will return all the calls. Let all the calls just go straight to your message bank. Then at this time, for this 2-hour period now, you've got 20 calls come in. Okay, you might have 3 minutes per call. And that's it. That's your time. And he's like, yeah, but I start talking and I can't, because he was, involved on the engagement side of it. And I said, well, then that's your specialty. Stay in your strength. Because your weakness is efficiency.
It's Mr. Nice, I think.
Exactly. Your strength is engagement. And your weakness. So it's sometimes becoming aware as a people, looking at a people industry, don't have people playing to their weaknesses all the time.
Yeah. And I do coach a lot of senior HR directors as well. And, with human resources, you have to keep your doors open because you're really having to attend to many different people. But then again, it's really, gaining back control. Yeah, I'm not saying that totally closing your doors all the time. I'm saying just making sure that you also plot in time instead of just meeting other people, but having meeting with yourself so that you can really work on the things that must do's and complete them and then stay focused. This is exactly what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just business. It can be in the home front, as we're discussing. Absolutely. Because as mums and busy parents, we set boundaries so that way we can have a bit of time for ourselves. And sometimes that time might only be the time in the bathroom.
Yes.
and if you've got a child like mine, you don't even get that. It's like, really? Can you give me a couple of minutes? Do I really have to see that right now? I can just see him bringing friends over. Oh, look, Mum's just in the toilet. Here, we'll just go see her. No! Get out!
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, like for myself, I make sure that I have time for myself, to go for my spa treatment, enjoying, having some facial or, massages and so on. And those are really important because we all need to recharge. And the best ways to recharge is really to have some time for yourself to do what you really like to do. Yeah, those are really important.
You can't burn the candle at both ends expect there to be a bit of wax left.
Exactly.
So, and for those that, if massages and facials aren't on your to-do list or aren't in your budget, there is always just getting out in nature, just getting disconnected.
Walk around. Yeah, exactly. Of course, walk by the park, be with the plants and the animals and so on, play with the dog. These are all the things which are my time, meaning you can actually have that extra 2 hours that is your time. You can decide to read a book, sit at a corner, watch your television, not be disturbed. As long as you're relaxing, this time belongs to you. You can decide to do what you love to.
Exactly. And people might think, hang on, Rosie, weren't you talking about connection and engagement? I was talking about get disconnected from all that drains you, reconnect to what recharges you and what really adds life into your life, adds value into you, because otherwise we all know the saying, you can only give what you've got. And if you've got nothing left, which people in workplaces reach that point of finality, like recently a friend of mine actually attempted suicide, and that was within the police force, and he's been going through a period of stress and attempting to resign, and then all the medical process that they've got to go through it, and his frustration level just caught up with him. And it was because after all his 20 plus years of service, the message being received by him was that you don't matter, you're not of value to us anymore. And I think that's the worst message any human being walking on the planet can ever hear or receive or misinterpret, is that they are not of value. So if they get nothing else from listening today, it's knowing that you are of value, you set your value and dictate your value, and then that message is received by other people, irrespective of the circumstances, because unless you've set that, you won't feel empowered to change your circumstances.
Exactly. I think that was really well said, Rosie. It's really important for individuals to have back control, to take back control, of the time of themselves as well. Really, it is. There is going to be a lot of different distractions, a lot of different people who will be telling you different things. It's for you to really embrace that power and take back that control. And whether it's going to be work or whether it's going to be positivity, continuously tell yourself that, yes, I can do it. I'm a great guy. I've done this. I can do it again and again and again and again. Yeah.
And, for myself, I can remember a period of time, this is going back quite some time. And, when we're younger, we haven't got the advantage of hindsight of knowing that I did something really tough and challenging and difficult and I got through it and survived. When we're younger, we haven't had those experiences yet to test our strength in a way, to know just what adversity we can face and overcome. So therefore, that first bump or glitch in the road, as I call it, people think, oh, Rosie, it's not a bump or a glitch. I just lost all, my whole business. I've become bankrupt. I've just lost my relationship of so many years. Or, they feel as if, life will never be the same again or never be good again. And for me, it's like, well, that's just an opportunity then for you developing and setting really clearly what your value of yourself is. And I didn't have any value and I didn't know how to get my value. And I did a really simple exercise, which was simply a mantra of words. I just repeated words, and I repeated words such as, love, strength, power, passion, vitality. The words, as I was saying them, they actually were empty of any meaning because I was so disconnected and disengaged. But I would go riding on my bike and I would just repeat these words over and over. And if nothing else, it at least stopped me thinking dire negative thoughts. However, I found over a short period of time that here I was biking along, and instead of just saying the mantra, love, passion, peace, joy, happiness, that I'd been doing for so long, all of a sudden I was biking and I was going, love, joy, peace, happiness. And I all of a sudden had an enthusiasm and a vitality. And I thought, where the hell's this come from? And I don't know where it come from. All I know is thank God it did.
Yeah, it works, I mean, that's what I usually tell my children as well, and also, some of the participants. The three things that they need to try and remember, and that is, I can, I must, and I will, especially if you don't have the confidence to do certain things. Normally, people are quite conservative. They don't really want to take risks, and they kept on giving themselves excuses that, oh, this cannot be done, that cannot be done. So I always tell them, when you wake up, look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I can, I will, and I must do it. Now, when you are saying those things, think about having the clarity of the end in mind. Think about your family. You're doing this for the family. Or think about your work. You're doing this because this is part of your KPIs. And believing in it. So I actually came up with a formula that is known as the SPAM formula. SPAM as in SPAM. It stands for staying positively active and motivated. So if you stay positively active and motivated, you keep on moving and you keep on thinking of something that's really, really positive, there's no chance at all for any negativity. You're going to be successful. It's just going to take time. And also remembering that every single one of them, every single person on earth, every one of us will stumble and fall at any one time. So it's a matter of coming up and then moving forward again. But then again, it doesn't really mean that you're not going to fall. You will still fall. However, if you keep having that positive mindset and, being motivated, you could come up again and then again and again. I have the same conversation with my daughter. And I said, it doesn't really matter that, even if you have failed once or twice or three times, this is nothing, because failure doesn't really exist. And to me, failure they're merely experiences in your life, because once you've experienced certain kind of events, it makes you stronger, become more resilient. I think if you have that kind of a mindset, it's going to help you in a long, long, long way. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. It's like, as babies, none of us came out running from the womb.
Exactly.
we had to
quite creepy.
Well, there's a 2-day-old baby speaking. I reckon that would freak the parents
really?
out. It's like, what the?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be wondering what they had to say after it's in the womb, like what their first word would be. It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
That's something I'd pay attention to. But I was laughing at the word when you were speaking about failure, because that's one of the first things I always share when I present publicly, is that I lost that word from my language and I chose to use simply results. And I call failure results I don't want. So we're all getting results. We get results in our life that we want, or we get results that we don't want. We flip either side all the time. And the difference between those that are, that other people see as successful is that we've failed a hell of a lot more than everybody else.
Yeah, I call them experiences, because if you've been through it, this is one of the experiences, and every experience will make you stronger. Every experience will build up the resiliencies in you. Look at some of those famous people, Albert Einstein, Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many thousands of times they've actually been through those experiences, and they never gave up. And because of that, it's just that one time that they never gave up, it gave them that breakthrough. So, these are excellent people that we can kind of emulate. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where, those of us that have the most results of what we didn't want, what we get out of it is the fact, that power and that confidence of knowing that we do get back up again. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what most people, the power to yourself personally is knowing that whatever comes your way, you get back up again. You find a better way. That's the beauty of life, and that's the beauty of mentors around us.
Yeah. We are all human beings, so obviously, it's actually quite normal if any one of us, have moments whereby we are down, moments where we're depressed, or moments where we say, oh, to hell with it, I'm not going to do it. There will be moments like that. The thing is really, sit back, think about it, and then just bounce back forward. Yeah, of course, you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to do that. It's not as if, you got to suppress everything. We have to clarify this so that people doesn't think that, hey, we're robots, yeah? Yeah.
Exactly. And there are difficult experiences. People, dealing with the death of loved ones, with chronic conditions that, debilitating. There's so much going on in the world.
Exactly.
There's not one pat answer given to one individual for that point in time. What there is knowing that you have ways, there are skills, there are tools, there are abilities, there are people that help improve. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moment by moment. So now for yourself, if people want to get in touch with you and for what to be able to be involved in any of the PEP programs, where would they go to?
Well, they can actually reach me as well. If they Google search me, they can type in my name, Angeline V with the V, Victor, Vanessa, which is my second name, and Teo. There's only one Angeline V Teo in the world, so you can find me on that. Or you can email communications at pepworldwideasia.com. That's communications with an S dot pepworldwideasia, one word, .com.
Okay, and are you going across to the US these days?
Yeah, I actually just came back from San Francisco. I just came back from Vancouver as well, and from Edinburgh and London. And then, yeah, I'm heading. I'm going to Australia down under by the end of this month. Yeah.
Oh, my birthday! The end of this month.
Oh, happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Oh, thank you. Are you going to be by the Gold Coast? Are we going to catch up?
Well, I'm going to be at the Western Australia at the end of the month, and then after that I've got to be in Vietnam, and then in Malaysia. So I fly around almost every week, actually.
So you know, you're definitely walking the talk of how to stay, you know, personally efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why, you know, a lot of participants always ask me, my gosh, you know, you're somewhere here every week. I'm calling you and I'm finding you, you know, all over the world. How did you keep up to this? And I think it's really important, you know, once you're efficient, you're in control. And once you stay positively active and motivated all the time, you're not focusing on the negative part of it. You're focusing on how to move forward all the time. And that helps you with the tools and the principles. And, you know, when you walk the talk, it really helps you a lot. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. And as you said, you know, for most people listening, I think it's good to reevaluate at times. And that key word you used earlier is to prioritise, you know, how you want your life from this moment forward, moving forward. It doesn't matter what's been. You know, we don't have control over that other than to maybe think a little bit better on it than we had previously. But we're certainly the dictators of the direction our destiny is now unfolding in.
Absolutely. I think destiny is in our own hands, really. Yeah.
Well, that's the best place it could possibly be. Yes. I wouldn't want it in anybody else's. Yes. That's for sure.
I mean, of course, there are things that we can't control, but then we try and focus on the areas that we can control. We can't control the environment. We can't control the weather. We can't control how other people is going to be reacting towards us or feeling about us, but we can definitely control over ourselves.
Exactly. And that's when, you know, most importantly, a lot of people tend to put their value outside of themselves.
Yes.
And I keep using that word value because I want people to understand that this is within their own personal power to acknowledge their own value and appreciate and support themselves personally, not look for it outside of yourself, because that's where we then have those feelings of failure and that lack seeps in. Because, you know, you can have a diploma on the wall, you can have big dollars in a bank account, you know, you can have, you know, an entourage that is amazing, and then you can have a week where it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, exactly.
And somehow your value's disappeared. No, it hasn't. You're the same person. So put your value internally and emphasize that. Now, every week I actually draw a card from my Abraham Hicks deck about the show, and it's a positive aspect for focus. And I like this week's that I've drawn because the key comment is, rather than complaining, I will focus on positive aspects. And I think today we've definitely been focusing on positive aspects, not only within the workplace, but personally, because what we've summed it up as is that it's about people.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think regardless of where you are in an organization or at home, it'll be very cold without people. In an organization, the people are the pillars to the whole structure, to the whole company.
Exactly. Sorry, I made a change online. And exactly. So for those that are seeking more positive empowerment, you can contact Angeline V Teo. V for Victor, Teo. So that's Tango Echo Oscar. And also you can go across to kickbutt.com.au, and that's kickbutt with one T, because if you put two T's in, I don't know where you're going and what information and advice you're going to get. However, it won't be from this Aussie. So there's lots of audio and there's lots of articles there, all completely complimentary to keep you engaged. So I'd like to thank you very much, Angeline Teo.
Thank you, Rosie.
I look forward to when our paths cross yet again.
Yes, absolutely, Rosie. I look forward to you visiting Asia again and myself meeting up with you in Australia again.
Yes, and I won't be 4 months pregnant this time because it feels like that will be a good look.
Oh, no one knows.
Thank you. And
All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day ahead, Rosie.
Thank you. And thank you to my listeners. You'll join me here next week on Until Now. Until then, stay kicking butt.